Hi and welcome back. In my previous video, I talked about how you can automate business processes using Deepseek and the Wrk Automation platform. Using the capabilities of the Wrk platform, you can leverage a large language model like Deepseek to automatically process large volume of transaction or tasks without needing to manually prompt or monitor the response. In this part 2 video, I'm going to show you a real-life example of Deepseek within a business process that can automate thousands of document processing. The example we will use is the analysis of the content of credit card statements. The goal is to read the content of a statement and get the vendor names, the total amount for each vendor, and the currency in which the transaction was done. Everything in a clean format so that it can be used by other systems. This is obviously not a full business process, but a partial one that can fit in many scenarios, such as having hundreds of those statements from employees' expenses that need reconciliation, or an audit firm having to review hundreds of thousands of those statements. Also, the document could be an invoice or a contract, it doesn't really matter. The important piece here is that we have a large volume of documents that require process automation and some AI intervention. So why use a large language model? While reading a document is nothing new, as optical character recognition has been around for a while, the challenge is making sense of the content. Reading the full content of a document will come in a giant messy blob of text that is painful to read. We can tweak or do some programming to make sense of the content, but that's really hard to do when the format of the document changes drastically from one to another. Besides, that would be an outdated way of doing it in the day and age of large language models. LLMs excel at making sense of a large blob of text. This is one of the areas where LLM make process automation so much more efficient. We have seen at Wrk that LLM used in this scenario accelerate the speed of deployment, improves accuracy, and allows for automation where it was previously impractical to do so. Other LLMs can also do the job. They can actually do a better job than Deepseek in this context. But remember, we're using Deepseek because it is open source. I will have a small comparison with ChatGPT 4.0 at the end of the video. In this workflow, I will take a credit card statement in PDF, CSVs, or Excels. Financial institutions will use one of those file formats. We don't care much how the content will look, as we will rely on the LLM to make sense of it. Next, because Deepseek cannot handle file, we're going to use OCR technology, which is available on the Wrk platform to get all of the content in text. In case it is a CSV or Excel, I will use an action to query the content, all of which are available on the Wrk platform. Here I'm pulling everything off the file to bring to the platform. Now that I have my content, I can send it to Deepseek programmatically. Trust me, this beats copy-pasting content manually when you have a few thousands of them to do. Here I'm using Deepseek in 2 instances of the workflow. The first one is to determine the currency of the credit card statement. I am assuming that I know nothing about the credit card statements going through the workflow. The second instance of Deepseek is going to do the actual parsing of the content and extract the information I want from it. The reason why I separated the job into 2 steps for Deepseek is that it will lose context if you give it too many instructions, or if it is too complex for it to handle. To note here that I am only using the 14 billion parameter models. The larger ones could possibly handle more instructions, but this is an arbitrary line that I'm drawing for the job that is relatively simple. The 14B is already using a fair amount of resources for this job. Using more seems like a waste. And that's one of the real downsides of LLMs. It needs a lot of computing power. So making use of the right model size for the job is important. And at Wrk, we do this evaluation for each use case. Now let's look at the instructions I have given Deepseek. I'm going to put the prompt on screen so we can analyze them. The main goal here for Deepseek is to get the currency of the transactions in the credit card statement, to figure out whether they are USD, CAD, Euros, whichever currency it could be, followed by 5 additional set of instructions. To note here that the instruction number 6 is to provide the output in between triple quotes so that I can separate the answer compared to the whole explanation. Unlike other language model, which I can put an instruction like this, Deepseek will always provide an explanation. So I do need to add a few steps in my workflow to clean it up, and the triple quotes help. On my second instance of using Deepseek, the objective in this one, it is to parse the content into the following JSON format. So I can give it a proper format, which is going to abide to. However, like I mentioned previously, it will still provide an explanation. And then followed by 7 sets of additional instructions, where I have taken the default currency from the previous step and apply it here. As you can see, these are my prompt to Deepseek, and they range between 5 to 10 additional instructions, which they can usually handle. In our experience, anything more than that, and it will start losing context. Along the way in the workflow, we format the content going in and out of Deepseek. While the LLM can handle content in pretty much any format, getting it out cleanly is a challenge, especially for Deepseek. It has the tendency to bubble, and there is no way to avoid it. ChatGPT 4.0 is more succinct at responding than Deepseek. Luckily, that's not much of an issue on the Wrk platform. We can take a few actions to ensure I clean up the content from Deepseek and also ensure it has done it properly. There are many ways of applying validation on the platform, and I am using regex here because I like regex. I also have a basic step to verify that it has actually followed instructions. Deepseek again can omit instructions when this gets too complicated. Another downside of LLMs, they cannot be trusted 100%. While it will get better with time and some models are better at some jobs than others, we do not want to take the chance for mission-critical business process. We can handle all of those safeguards on the Wrk platform. The rest of the workflow is simply getting the bit of information I want and displaying it in the console for the purpose of the demo. Now let's put a credit card statement through and see how it handles it. The first part of the workflow is to figure out whether the file is a PDF or a CSV and then pull out the content of the file. Once the content has been retrieved, we're going to send it to Deepseek for analysis and figure out the default currency of the statement. And here we're getting the response from Deepseek, and the raw response contains a lot of explanation which we don't need as part of an automated workflow. What we need is this, which the workflow has cleaned up, and we now have the default currency of the credit card statement. Once we get the default currency, we're going to go to the next step with Deepseek, which is to extract the content in a clean manner. We now have the response from the step 2, where Deepseek provides the reasoning prior to doing the analysis of the content. At the end of the analysis, it did provide the data as requested in a JSON schema format. And we now have all the transactions in a JSON schema. With this, the workflow can take the content and clean up the output to get only the JSON schema so we can use it. And for debugging and demo purposes, I have also displayed all the transactions in the console as such. That went well. Now let me show you an example where Deepseek can fail. This is a credit card statement that has very little information on the currency. Even if I have given it explicit instructions to default to USD if the currency cannot be determined, it will lose context because the statement's too long and will have forgotten the instructions given. Here's the output from Deepseek for this credit card statement. Going through all the reasoning, and it's a long reasoning, it couldn't figure out the currency of all the transactions in the credit card statement. In the end, said that this document represents a log of transactions, which is true. However, that was not what I asked, so it did lose context and lost track of the objective. And that is where we put a safeguard in the workflow to handle this situation. With the safeguard, the workflow can continue as expected. And with this, I have a workflow I can run to analyze thousands of credit card statements. I will get a clean output for each and every credit card statement. Using the Wrk platform, I can also send the data to any system I want, or even add additional steps using Deepseek to analyze the content. For example, we can find transactions that are suspicious given a set of rules. The possibilities are quite endless, and much can be automated. I'm going to share some observation about Deepseek compared to other popular LLMs, such as ChatGPT 4.0, in the context of this example. While Deepseek has good reasoning and can handle complex content, it has a few disadvantages in the context of automating a business process. Those disadvantages are that it does not respond in a structured manner, it can lose context faster than ChatGPT, it is also less consistent than ChatGPT, and it doesn't handle files at the moment. So why would we want Deepseek if it has those downsides? Well, the reason we are here is because it is open source. So full control of your data, and there's no licensing fee. Those are some pretty valid arguments. I think OpenAI missed the boat on open sourcing a LLM model. Besides, we can easily handle the downsides using the Wrk platform. And our team will take care of all those steps, so you don't even need to worry about it. That concludes this demo of Deepseek for today. Let me know in the comment if you would like to see more of this type of content. Thank you.